The week before Christmas, my granddaughter said, "Grandma, I heard Mom say you won't be here for Christmas this year." I thought she was joking. That night, I came home early and heard a strange noise coming from my room. I panicked when I realized what it was. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The farmhouse had been in my family for 43 years. Every floorboard knew my footsteps. Every window reflected seasons of my life. At 72, I'd earned the right to call this place mine in ways that went beyond the certified copy of the deed locked in my safe deposit box. The December wind rattled the shutters as I sat in my kitchen that Monday evening, wrapping presents for Christmas. Still a week away. My name is Lucille Johnson, and I've lived what most would call an ordinary life. I raised 3 children in this house after my husband Thomas died 15 years ago. My daughter Claire moved back 2 years ago with her husband Derek and their 8-year-old daughter Lily. They'd claimed financial troubles, a temporary arrangement until they got back on their feet. The guest cottage out back had become their permanent residence, though Claire spent most of her time in my kitchen, going through my mail, reorganizing my pantries, making helpful suggestions about my medication schedule. "You're getting older, Mom," she'd say with that concerned smile. "We just want to make sure you're safe." Safe. The word had started to feel like a cage. That afternoon, little Lily had wandered into my sewing room where I was hemming curtains. She climbed onto the window seat, her small face serious in the winter light. "Grandma," she said quietly, "I heard Mom say you won't be here for Christmas this year." I'd laughed, thinking it was one of those mixed-up things children say. "Of course I'll be here, sweetheart. This is my house. Where else would I go?" But Lily didn't laugh. Her brown eyes held something that made my needle pause mid-stitch. "That's what I thought too," she whispered. "But Mom said it to Daddy. She said, 1 week until Christmas, and then Mom will be gone." The words settled like frost on my skin. "You must have misheard, honey." She shook her head. "I know what I heard. I'd dismissed it then, pushed it away like you do with uncomfortable thoughts. But now, alone in my kitchen as evening shadows stretched across the farmhouse floor, those words circled back. Children don't lie about what they overhear. They might misunderstand, but they don't invent. I was supposed to meet Claire and Derek at 7 for dinner at the main house. They'd insisted on cooking, said I needed to rest more, stop doing so much. But something pulled at me. That old instinct mothers develop. The one that knows when something's wrong, even when everything looks right. At 6:30, I grabbed my coat and told them I was going into town for last-minute shopping. I saw Claire's face through the cottage window, her expression flickering between annoyance and something else. Relief? I drove exactly 3 miles, pulled into the grocery store parking lot, and waited. At 6:45, I turned the car around and headed home, killing the headlights as I pulled into my own driveway. The farmhouse stood dark except for a light in my bedroom window. My bedroom. The one I'd told them I'd be out of all evening. My heart hammered as I let myself in through the back door, the one that never creaked because I'd oiled it myself last month. The house was silent except for sounds coming from upstairs. Footsteps, the scrape of furniture, the distinctive sound of drawers opening and closing. Someone was searching my room. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, my hand on the banister, every instinct screaming at me to announce myself, to call out and end this strangeness. But something held me back. Lily's words. The way Claire had been watching me lately. That calculating look when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The footsteps moved from my dresser to my closet. I heard the sound of hangers sliding, boxes being moved. They were looking for something specific. I crept up the stairs, avoiding the 3rd and 7th steps that groaned. The door to my bedroom stood open 3 inches. Through the gap, I could see Derek's broad back as he rifled through my hat boxes on the top shelf. Claire stood by my dresser, my jewelry box open. But she wasn't looking at jewelry. She was reading something. A small leather notebook I kept in the bottom drawer, the one where I'd recorded all my financial information, account numbers, passwords. "It has to be here," Claire hissed. "Mom said the deed was in a fireproof box, but I've checked the safe 3 times. Maybe it's at the bank," Derek muttered, his voice strained. "We don't have time for maybe. Dr. Phillips said the evaluation is scheduled for Friday. Once we have her declared incompetent, We can file for guardianship immediately. But if she gets wind of it and moves the deed or changes her will, my chest tightened. Incompetent. Guardianship. Your brother agreed to sign the affidavit? Derek asked. Michael will do whatever I tell him. He lives 3 states away and barely calls. As far as he knows, Mom's memory is failing rapidly. Claire's laugh was cold. A few strategic phone calls, some well-placed concerns about her forgetting to eat, leaving the stove on. It's not hard to paint a picture. I gripped the doorframe. None of it was true. I was sharper now than I'd been at 50. But I understood with sudden, terrible clarity what was happening. They were building a case to have me declared mentally unfit, and once they had guardianship, they'd have control of everything. The farm, my accounts, my life. What about the Christmas thing? Derek asked. You really think we can get her moved by then? Dr. Phillips runs that memory care facility in Portland. He owes me a favor, and he said he can fast-track the admission if we have the court papers. Mom will be settled in before New Year's. Claire closed my notebook with a snap. She'll be safe there, Derek. Supervised. Cared for. It's what's best. The words dripped with false compassion. I recognized the tone, the same one she'd used when convincing me to let them move into the cottage, when persuading me to add her name to my checking account, just for emergencies, when suggesting I was too old to drive at night or manage my own medication. What about Lily? Derek's voice dropped. She's been asking questions. Lily is 8. She'll adjust. Claire moved to the window, staring out at the dark fields. This farm is worth at least $2 million. The house alone would sell for $600,000. We'll finally be able to... A floorboard creaked under my foot. The conversation stopped like a guillotine had dropped. Claire's head snapped toward the door. Did you hear that? I pressed myself against the hallway wall, my heart a wild drum. Move, my mind screamed. But where? Down the stairs they'd hear me. My bedroom was the only room on this end of the hall with a lock. Probably just the house settling, Derek said, but his footsteps approached the door. I made my decision in a split second. I walked straight into my bedroom, flipping on the overhead light with shaking hands. Oh, I said brightly, letting surprise flood my voice. I didn't know you were up here. I thought we were having dinner at 7. The shock on their faces would have been comical if my entire world wasn't crumbling. Claire recovered first, that smooth smile sliding into place like a mask. Mom, we thought you went shopping. I forgot my wallet, I said, moving past them to my dresser. My jewelry box still lay open, my notebook visible beneath a stack of silk scarves. I picked up my wallet from where I'd deliberately left it, tucking it into my purse. I'm just so scattered lately. I watched Claire's eyes sharpen at the word scattered. Are you feeling all right? She asked, moving closer. You look pale. Just tired, dear. I smiled at her, at Derek, at these 2 people who were plotting to steal my life. You know how it is at my age? Yes, Claire said softly, and something in her expression chilled me. I do know, Mom. That's exactly why we need to talk. Why don't we go downstairs? Derek made pot roast. As we descended the stairs, me first, feeling their eyes on my back, I understood that I'd stumbled into something far more dangerous than I'd imagined. This wasn't just about money or property. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The convenient move into the cottage, the constant presence, the subtle undermining of my confidence. And in 5 days, a doctor I'd never met was going to evaluate me for competency. In the kitchen, as Claire set the table and Derek carved the roast, I played my part. The slightly confused elderly woman, the one who needed help, who needed guidance. But my mind raced behind the smile. They'd made one critical mistake. They'd assumed that because I was 72, I was helpless. They'd forgotten that I'd run this farm for 15 years after Thomas died, that I'd raised 3 children through teenage rebellions and college tuitions, that I'd survived losses and betrayals before. They'd forgotten that age doesn't diminish intelligence. It refines it. As we sat down to dinner, Claire reached over and patted my hand. We love you, Mom. We just want what's best for you. I know, I said softly. I know exactly what you want. Her smile faltered for just a moment, and in that moment, I began to plan. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the same bed they'd been ransacking hours earlier, and stared at the ceiling, my mind working through possibilities like a chess player considering moves. At 3 in the morning, I rose and went to my study, the small room off the kitchen that had been Thomas's office when he was alive. The filing cabinet held 40 years of documents, birth certificates, tax returns, insurance policies. And there, in the bottom drawer beneath a stack of old farm equipment warranties, was what I needed. The original deed to the property, along with my will, both witnessed and notarized. I'd made that will 3 years ago with my attorney, Harold Brennan, a man I'd known for 30 years. Or I thought I'd known him. At 8 o'clock Tuesday morning, I called his office. His secretary, a chirpy young woman named Amanda, answered on the second ring. "Harold Brennan's office, how may I help you?" "Amanda, this is Lucille Johnson. I need to speak with Harold today. It's urgent." A pause. "Oh, Mrs. Johnson. I'm so sorry, but Mr. Brennan is completely booked this week, with the holidays and all. This is about my will and my property deed. I need to verify some information." Another pause. Longer this time. "Let me check with Mr. Brennan. Can you hold?" The hold music played for nearly 5 minutes. When Amanda returned, her voice had changed. Cooler, more careful. "Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Brennan asked me to tell you that he reviewed your file recently with your daughter Claire, and everything is in order. There's really no need for—" "He discussed my private legal documents with my daughter?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Without my permission? Well, I believe Claire had concerns about your cognitive health and—" I hung up. My hands were shaking. They'd gotten to my attorney, or Claire had somehow. I thought back to last month when she'd insisted on driving me to a routine appointment, how she'd steered me toward Harold's office afterward, just to say hello, how she'd sent me down to the coffee shop on the first floor to get lattes while she caught up with Harold about his grandchildren. She'd been laying groundwork, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state. I pulled out the yellow pages and started calling other attorneys in town. The first 2 were booked until January. The third, a woman named Patricia Hayward, agreed to see me that afternoon at 2. "Just a consultation," she'd said. "No promises until I hear the details." At noon, Claire appeared at my kitchen door without knocking. She did that now, walked into my house as if it were already hers. "Mom, I brought lunch." She held up a paper bag from the diner in town. "Turkey Club, your favorite." I smiled and thanked her, watching as she unpacked the sandwich, chips, a pickle. She moved through my kitchen with proprietary ease, knowing where I kept the plates, the napkins. "I thought we could eat together," she said, settling into the chair across from me. "We need to talk about something." Here it comes, I thought. The setup, the concerned daughter act. "Your friend Dorothy called this morning." Claire unwrapped her own sandwich with deliberate slowness. "She's worried about you. Said you missed your bridge game last week, and when she called to check on you, you didn't remember making the date." "That's not true. I never made a date with Dorothy. She's been in Florida since Thanksgiving, visiting her sister." Claire's expression flickered. Surprise, then quick recovery. "Are you sure, Mom?" Because she seemed very certain. "Dorothy sends me postcards from Fort Lauderdale. I got one yesterday." I stood and retrieved it from my bulletin board, holding it up. "She won't be back until January 5th. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled taut. "Maybe I misunderstood," Claire said finally. "I'm just worried about you. We all are." "Who's we all?" "Your family. People who love you." She reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Dr. Phillips, you remember him. He treated Aunt Linda. He's agreed to do a wellness check. Just routine. It would really put my mind at ease. I don't need a wellness check. I'm perfectly fine. But that's just it, Mom. Sometimes people don't realize when they're starting to slip." Her voice was honey-sweet, reasonable. "It's not about being senile or anything awful like that. It's about making sure you're safe, that you're taking your medications correctly, managing your finances. I manage everything perfectly well. Do you?" She pulled out her phone, scrolled to something. "Because the pharmacy called yesterday. You missed picking up your blood pressure medication. That's the 2nd time this month. My blood pressure medication. I took it every morning with breakfast, and I had a full bottle in my medicine cabinet upstairs. I'd refilled it 3 weeks ago. Let me see that, I said. She turned the phone toward me. Sure enough, there was a text message from the pharmacy. Prescription ready for pickup. M. Johnson, blood pressure medication. I already have that medication, I said slowly. In fact, I just took it this morning. Really? Can you show me? We went upstairs together, Claire's hand hovering near my elbow as if I might fall. In my bathroom, I opened the medicine cabinet. The orange bottle I'd placed there this morning was gone. Mom? Claire's voice was gentle, pitying. Are you sure you took it today? It was here. I checked the other shelves, the drawer, the counter. Nothing. Someone moved it. Who would move your medication? The question hung in the air. We both knew she had a key to the house. She'd been in here yesterday, searching my bedroom. Maybe you took it downstairs, she suggested, or put it somewhere else and forgot. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Mom. These little lapses. I didn't forget, but doubt crept in, cold and insidious. Had I taken it? I remembered filling the glass with water, opening the bottle. But had I actually swallowed the pill, or had I been interrupted? The memory felt fuzzy at the edges. Claire guided me back downstairs, her hand firm on my arm. The appointment with Dr. Phillips is Friday at 10. Just a conversation, that's all. And it would mean so much to me to know you're okay. After she left, I tore apart my downstairs looking for that medication bottle. It wasn't there. Either I'd misplaced it, which I knew I hadn't, or someone had taken it to make me look forgetful. At 2 o'clock, I drove to Patricia Hayward's office in the professional building downtown. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and an efficient handshake. Mrs. Johnson, please sit down. Tell me what brings you here. I told her everything. The conversation I'd overheard, the guardianship plans, the doctor's evaluation, Harold Brennan's betrayal. She listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to be direct with you. What you're describing is, unfortunately, more common than you might think. Adult children who see aging parents as obstacles to inheritance rather than people deserving of respect. Relief flooded through me. She believed me. However, she continued, I need to tell you that I can't take your case. The relief evaporated. Why not? My firm has a policy against taking cases that might involve competency challenges. It's too much liability. If your daughter proceeds with this guardianship petition and you have an attorney who represented you beforehand, it can be used as evidence that you were paranoid or confused. But I'm not confused. I'm being targeted. I believe you. But the court system is tricky with these things, especially when adult children present what looks like legitimate concern. She pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. This is a colleague in Portland, Martin Vega. He specializes in elder law and guardianship defense. But Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to tell you something important. The best way to fight this is to be proactive. Don't wait for them to file paperwork. Get your own medical evaluation from an independent doctor. Document everything. And for heaven's sake, change your locks and revoke any power of attorney or bank access your daughter has. I stared at the card in my hand. Portland was 2 hours away. The evaluation is Friday. That's 3 days. Then you need to move fast. She stood, signaling the end of our meeting. And Mrs. Johnson, be careful. If your daughter is as calculated as you say, she's thought several steps ahead. I drove home through an early winter sunset, the sky bruised purple and gray. The farmhouse looked peaceful in the fading light, smoke curling from the cottage chimney where Claire and her family were probably having dinner. My family. My daughter. The child I'd rocked through nightmares and nursed through chickenpox. The girl who'd brought me dandelions and called me the best mommy in the world. When had she started seeing me as something to be managed? Disposed of? I parked in the barn instead of my usual spot, an instinct I couldn't quite name. As I walked toward the house, I noticed tire tracks in the dirt near the side entrance. Fresh tracks from this afternoon. Someone had been here while I was gone. Inside, everything looked normal, but I'd learned to notice the small things. A chair pushed slightly out from the table. The rug near my study door rumpled. The faint smell of men's cologne, Derek's brand, lingering in the air. I went to the filing cabinet. The bottom drawer, where I'd left the deed and will this morning, stood slightly ajar. I opened it fully, my heart sinking. The deed was still there, but my will was gone. I stood in the growing darkness of my study, holding the deed with both hands, and understood the full scope of what I was facing. They weren't just planning to have me declared incompetent. They were systematically removing every tool I might use to fight back. My attorney was compromised. My will was missing. My medication was being hidden to make me look forgetful. And in 3 days, Dr. D. Phillips would evaluate me with evidence of memory lapses and cognitive decline that Claire had been carefully manufacturing. But they'd made mistakes too. They'd underestimated me. They'd assumed I'd be passive, confused, easily manipulated. They'd forgotten that I'd managed a farm, raised children, survived widowhood, that I'd negotiated with banks and suppliers and stubborn livestock, that I'd learned patience and strategy from 40 years of coaxing life from difficult soil. I locked the deed in my bedroom safe, one Claire hadn't found yet, and sat down at my kitchen table with a notebook. At the top of the first page, I wrote 3 words: "Know thy enemy." Then I began to make a list of everything I knew about Claire's finances, her marriage, her secrets. If she wanted a war, she'd get one, but on my terms. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent. Through the window, I could see lights blazing in the cottage. I wondered if they were celebrating, thinking they'd won. They hadn't. The game had only just begun. Wednesday morning arrived with freezing rain that coated everything in ice. I'd been awake since 4, my notebook now filled with observations, dates, inconsistencies in Claire's stories over the past 2 years. Patterns emerged when you looked closely enough. The timing of their financial troubles had coincided with her discovering that Thomas's life insurance policy, the one that made her the contingent beneficiary if I died, had matured to nearly $500,000. At 7, I called Martin Vega's office in Portland. His assistant said he could see me Thursday at noon, cutting it dangerously close to Friday's evaluation, but it would have to do. I made the appointment, my hand steady despite the fear churning in my gut. Then I did something Claire wouldn't expect. I called my son Michael in Colorado. "Mom?" His voice was thick with sleep. "It's early. Is everything okay?" "Michael, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Has Claire talked to you about my health?" Silence. Then, carefully, she mentioned she was concerned. Said you'd been forgetting things, getting confused. "What specifically did she tell you?" "Mom, I don't want to upset you. Michael James Johnson. I am your mother, and I'm asking you a direct question." He sighed. "She said you left the stove on 3 times last month, that you got lost driving to the grocery store, that you called her by Aunt Linda's name and didn't remember doing it. She sent me an email asking if I'd be willing to sign some paperwork supporting a medical evaluation." My chest tightened. "And what did you say?" "I said I needed to think about it. Mom, are you okay? Because if you're having problems, we can figure it out together. Maybe you need help. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm not having problems. I haven't left the stove on once. I've never gotten lost. And your Aunt Linda has been dead for 6 years. Why would I call anyone by her name?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "Michael, your sister is lying to you. She's been lying to both of us. That's a serious accusation. I know it is. And I can prove it. Could I? I had my own observations, but no hard evidence yet. I need you to not sign anything. Promise me." Another long pause. "Mom, I'll come out there, after Christmas. We'll sit down and talk about this as a family. After Christmas might be too late." "What does that mean?" I couldn't explain, not over the phone. Not when I didn't know if he'd believe me. "Just promise me you won't sign anything without talking to me first. Please." "I promise." "But Mom, if Claire is genuinely worried about you, maybe there's a middle ground here. Maybe you do need some extra help around the house. Someone to check in. I need my children to trust that I know my own mind." After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table feeling the weight of his doubt. Claire had poisoned that well, too. Even Michael, who'd always been the peacemaker, the reasonable one, was half convinced I was slipping into senility. At 9 o'clock, Lily knocked on my kitchen door. She was alone, wearing her purple winter coat and snow boots. "Grandma? Can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." I opened the door, glancing toward the cottage. No sign of Claire or Derek. "Does your mother know you're here?" "She's on the phone. She's always on the phone now." Lily climbed onto a kitchen chair, her small face serious. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I heard Mom and Dad talking again last night. They said the doctor is coming on Friday, and after that, you're going to go live somewhere else. A place where other old people live." Her eyes filled with tears. "But I don't want you to go. This is your house." I pulled her into a hug, my own eyes stinging. "I'm not going anywhere, Lily, I promise." "But Mom said," "Your mother is mistaken." I pulled back, looking into her face. "Lily, I need you to be very brave. Can you remember exactly what they said? Every word?" She nodded, solemn. "Mom said, Friday afternoon we'll have the evaluation results. Dr. Phillips promised he'd confirm cognitive decline. Then we file the emergency guardianship petition on Monday." And Dad said, "What if she fights it?" And Mom laughed and said, "With what? Harold already has copies of everything. She doesn't have a lawyer, doesn't have her will, and by Monday she won't even have her medication records." The words fell like stones. Dr. Phillips had already promised to confirm cognitive decline before even meeting me. This wasn't an evaluation. It was a predetermined conclusion. "What's guardianship?" Lily asked. "It's when a court says someone can't take care of themselves anymore, so someone else has to make their decisions for them. But you take care of yourself fine. You take care of all of us." She gripped my hand. "Grandma, Mom did something with your pills. I saw her take a bottle from your bathroom yesterday. Did you tell her you saw?" "No. I was hiding in the hall closet. I hide there sometimes when they fight." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They fight about money a lot. Dad says they owe people, and Mom says once they have the farm, they can pay everyone back." The pieces clicked into place. Not just greed, desperation. They owed money, probably serious money to serious people, and my farm was their way out. "Lily, this is very important. Has anyone else been coming to the cottage? People your parents meet with?" She thought for a moment. "There's a man in a suit who comes at night sometimes. Mom calls him Dr. Phillips. And there was another man last week, scary looking. He made Dad nervous." "Scary how?" "He had tattoos on his neck and he talked really quiet, but in a mean way. After he left, Dad was shaking. A debt collector. Or worse." I thought about Derek. Always smooth-talking, always with a scheme, always just about to close a big deal that never quite materialized. What had he gotten them into? The kitchen door opened without warning. Claire stood there, her face tight with anger barely concealed behind a smile. "Lily, I've been looking everywhere for you. Come on, we need to get you to school." "It's snowing too hard," I said. "The roads are— I'll decide what's safe for my daughter." Claire's voice was ice. She looked at Lily. "What have you been talking about?" "Nothing," Lily said quickly. "Just Christmas presents. Go wait in the car. Now." After Lily scurried out, Claire turned to me. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't fill my daughter's head with your confusion. She's too young to understand what's happening with your health." "Nothing is happening with my health. Mom, denial is part of the disease. Dr. Phillips explained it to me. The patient is often the last to recognize their own decline." She moved closer, and I saw something new in her eyes. Not just calculation, but a kind of desperate hardness. "The evaluation on Friday is for your own good. You'll see that eventually. And if I refuse, then we'll have to proceed with an emergency petition, which would be harder on everyone, especially you." She adjusted her purse strap. "It doesn't have to be adversarial. You can go willingly to Meadowbrook. It's a beautiful facility, really lovely, and you'll be safe there. Cared for. Locked up, you mean?" Her mask slipped for just a second. "If necessary." After she left, I stood at the window watching the ice accumulate on the trees. Meadowbrook. I'd heard of it. A memory care facility on the outskirts of Portland. Locked wards, patients heavily medicated. People went in and rarely came out. I had less than 48 hours. I spent the rest of Wednesday gathering evidence. I photographed my medication bottles with today's newspaper next to them, showing I had everything I was supposed to have. I wrote out a detailed timeline of Claire's claims versus reality. I retrieved my bank statements and highlighted the unauthorized withdrawals, small amounts, but regular, that had started 6 months ago when Claire insisted on being added just for emergencies. Then I did something that made my hands shake. I installed a small recording device in my living room. Thomas had used them years ago for business meetings, voice-activated. I'd found it in his office and had it activated at the electronics store in town, telling the teenage clerk I wanted to record my own thoughts. He'd shown me how it worked. Simple, undetectable, perfect. At 4 o'clock, Derek knocked on my door. Alone. "Lucille, can we talk?" I let him in, my heart pounding. The recorder was running. He sat at my kitchen table, looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen before. "I need to be straight with you. Claire doesn't know I'm here." "Go on." "This thing on Friday? I don't feel good about it. Claire's been talking to Dr. Phillips for weeks, and some of what she's told him isn't exactly accurate." He ran his hand through his hair. "But we're in a bad situation. I made some investments that didn't pan out, and we owe some people who aren't patient about repayment." "How much?" $250,000. I kept my face neutral, though the number staggered me. "To whom?" "A development company. They fronted me money for a real estate deal that fell through. Now they want their investment back with interest." He looked at me with something like pleading. "If we could borrow against the farm just temporarily." "You want me to mortgage my home to cover your debts?" "Not mortgage, just a loan. We'd pay you back." "And if you don't? If these people come after the property?" He was silent. "Derek, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I know what Claire is planning. I know about the guardianship petition, the predetermined evaluation, all of it. And I'm telling you right now, I will fight. I will fight with everything I have." His face paled. "She said you wouldn't understand, that you couldn't think clearly anymore. Do I seem unclear to you right now?" He stared at me, and I saw the moment his certainty cracked. No, you don't." "Then help me. Tell me everything. Who is Dr. Phillips, really? What did Claire promise him?" "I can't." But his voice wavered. "Lucille, these people we owe money to. They're not people you say no to. If we don't pay them back by New Year's, they've made it very clear what happens. Claire is desperate. I'm desperate. We need the farm to survive. So you'd sacrifice me to save yourselves?" He stood abruptly. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I don't think you're senile. And I don't think you should trust Dr. Phillips. He's not what Claire says he is." "What do you mean?" But he was already gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. I played back the recording, every word crystal clear. Derek's admission about the debts, his doubt about Claire's claims, his warning about Phillips. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it was a start. That night, I couldn't sleep again. At midnight, I heard sounds outside, footsteps crunching on ice, voices low and urgent. I moved to my bedroom window and looked down at the driveway. A black SUV was parked near the cottage. 2 men stood with Derek in the porch light. Even from a distance, I could see Derek's body language, fear, submission. One of the men handed him something. Papers. Derek shook his head, arguing. The man grabbed his collar. Claire appeared in the doorway, pulling the man back. They talked for several minutes, Claire's gestures animated, placating. Finally, the men returned to their SUV and drove away, taillights disappearing into the snowy darkness. I understood then. This wasn't just about greed. Claire and Derek were drowning, and they'd decided to use me as their life raft, even if it meant pushing me under to save themselves. But I'd survived worse than scheming children and crooked doctors. I'd survived grief and loss and decades of hard winters. I could survive this too. In my nightstand drawer, I found Thomas's old address book. There, under F, was the name I needed. Frank Phillips's brother, Scott. A real doctor, an honest one, who'd treated Thomas for years before his death. I'd call him first thing in the morning, get my own evaluation, build my defense. Because Claire had made one fatal error in her planning. She'd forgotten that a cornered animal fights hardest. And I wasn't done fighting yet. Thursday morning, I woke to find my car wouldn't start. The battery was dead, or had been disconnected. When I checked under the hood, I saw the cable had been loosened just enough to break the connection. Someone had been in my barn during the night. My appointment with Martin Vega in Portland was at noon. Without my car, I was trapped. I called the local taxi service. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson," the dispatcher said. "Our only car is out on a medical transport. Won't be back until 3. Too late." I tried the bus schedule. The next one to Portland left at 4 in the afternoon. Also too late. Claire had thought of everything. I stood in my kitchen, the clock ticking toward 8, my window of opportunity narrowing with each passing minute. Then I remembered. My neighbor, Ruth Henderson, lived a mile down the road. We'd been friends for 20 years. She'd help. I bundled into my coat and started walking. The road was slick with yesterday's ice, the morning air sharp enough to burn my lungs. I was 72 years old, walking through freezing weather because my own daughter had sabotaged my car. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. Ruth answered on the third knock, her face creasing with concern. "Lucille, good heavens, what are you doing out in this weather? I need a favor, a big one." Inside her warm kitchen, over coffee, I told her everything. Not the edited version, not the softened story, the whole truth. Ruth listened, her expression shifting from shock to anger to determination. "That girl," she said when I finished. "I always thought there was something calculating about Claire. Even when she was young, she'd smile at you while figuring out what she could get." She grabbed her car keys. "Portland, you said? Let's go." We made it to Martin Vega's office with 10 minutes to spare. He was a compact man in his 50s with shrewd eyes and a no-nonsense manner. I showed him everything. My documentation, the timeline, Derek's recorded confession, the bank statements showing Claire's unauthorized withdrawals. He listened to the full recording twice, taking notes. When it finished, he sat back in his chair. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to be direct with you. This is bad. Your daughter has built a circumstantial case that, on the surface, looks legitimate. A concerned daughter worried about an aging mother's declining capacity. Without concrete evidence that she's lying, a judge might side with her. But I have Derek's confession, which was obtained without his knowledge that he was being recorded. Oregon is a 2-party consent state. That recording is inadmissible in court." He held up his hand as I started to protest. "However, it tells us what we're dealing with. And it gives us leverage." "What kind of leverage?" "Derek admitted they owe money to dangerous people. He admitted the evaluation is predetermined. He admitted you seem perfectly competent." Martin leaned forward. "Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to file an emergency motion this afternoon to block any guardianship petition. I'll argue that there's evidence of financial exploitation, and that any evaluation should be conducted by a court-appointed psychiatrist, not Dr. Phillips. Will it work? It'll slow them down, buy us time. But Mrs. Johnson, I need you to understand something. The legal system moves slowly. Even with an emergency motion, we're looking at hearings, evaluations, investigations. If Claire and Derek are as desperate as you say, they might do something drastic before we can get court protection in place." The weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. What should I do? Document everything. Don't be alone with them. And whatever you do, don't go to that evaluation tomorrow. If Phillips has predetermined his findings, anything you say or do will be twisted to support their narrative. If I don't go, won't that make me look uncooperative? Let me worry about that. I'll notify Phillips's office that you're refusing the evaluation on advice of legal counsel and that you're requesting an independent court-appointed evaluator. He handed me his card. Call me if anything happens, day or night. And Mrs. Johnson, change your locks today. Get security cameras if you can. These situations can escalate quickly. Ruth drove me to a hardware store where I bought new locks and a simple doorbell camera that connected to my phone. Then she drove me home, promising to check on me every few hours. "You're not alone in this," she said, squeezing my hand. "Whatever you need." Back at the farm, I found Claire waiting on my front porch. Her expression was ice. Where were you? I had an appointment. What kind of appointment? You didn't mention any appointment. I don't need to clear my schedule with you, Claire. I'm still capable of managing my own life. Her eyes narrowed. Your car wouldn't start this morning. I was worried. I thought something had happened to you. How did you know my car wouldn't start? Derek checked on it this morning. He noticed the battery issue. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We were about to call a mechanic for you. How thoughtful. Mom, I need to talk to you about tomorrow. The evaluation? I'm not going. The smile vanished. What do you mean you're not going? Exactly what I said. I've retained legal counsel, Martin Vega. He's filing motions on my behalf, and he's advised me not to participate in any evaluation until we have a court-appointed evaluator. Claire's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Shock, fury, calculation. You hired a lawyer? Mom, that's paranoid behavior. That's exactly the kind of thing that shows you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very clearly. Clearly enough to know that Dr. Phillips has already decided his findings before meeting me. Clearly enough to know you've been systematically building a false case against me. Clearly enough to know you and Derek owe $250,000 to some very dangerous people. Her face went pale. Derek told you. Derek's conscience got the better of him, apparently. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You're drowning in debt, and you decided to throw me overboard to save yourselves. I pushed past her to my front door. Now please get off my property. Your property? Her voice turned shrill. I grew up in this house. I have just as much right to be here as you do. Actually, you don't. The deed is in my name alone. Always has been. And if you don't leave right now, I'll call the sheriff. She stared at me, breathing hard. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Derek, come to the main house now. She looked at me while she waited. You're making a mistake, Mom. A big one. Derek arrived 2 minutes later, his face haggard. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Tell her, Claire said to him. Tell her what happens if we don't pay those people back. Claire, don't. Tell her. Derek's shoulders slumped. They'll hurt us. They've already made threats. The guy who came by last night, he said if we don't have the money by New Year's, they'll start with Lily. My blood went cold. They threatened your daughter? They threatened all of us. Claire snapped. This isn't just about money anymore. Those people don't care about legal processes or what's fair. They want their investment back, and they will take it out on our family if we don't pay. The farm is the only asset we can access quickly enough. By having me declared incompetent and stealing my property. By saving all of our lives. Her voice cracked. You don't understand what these people are capable of. Derek's partner disappeared last month. Just vanished. They found his car in the river. This is real, Mom. This is life and death. I looked at them, my daughter and her husband, both terrified, both desperate. Part of me wanted to comfort them, to fix this like I'd fixed their problems when they were young. But I'd learned something important over the past few days. Their crisis didn't obligate me to sacrifice myself. Then you need to go to the police. The police can't help us, Derek said quietly. These people are connected. They know people in the department. Going to the cops would only make things worse. What about bankruptcy? Debt restructuring? We tried. No legitimate lender will touch us now. Claire moved closer. Mom, please. If you would just sign over power of attorney, let us take out a mortgage on the farm. Just enough to pay these people back. We could sort everything else out later. And if you default on the mortgage? If you can't make the payments? Silence. Then I lose the farm. The home I've lived in for 43 years. The land your father and I built together. I shook my head. No, I won't do it. Then you're sentencing your granddaughter to... Claire couldn't finish the sentence. I'm not sentencing anyone to anything. You and Derek made choices that led you here. Bad choices, apparently. But those are your consequences to face, not mine. How can you be so selfish? Claire's voice was pure venom now. We're your family. Your own daughter is begging you for help, and you'd rather hold on to some property than save your grandchild. Don't you dare put this on me. You created this situation. You fix it. Derek grabbed Claire's arm. Come on, this isn't working. As they walked toward the door, Claire turned back. The evaluation is still happening tomorrow, with or without you. Dr. Phillips will submit his findings based on the evidence we've already provided. And Mom, when the judge signs that guardianship order, you won't have any choice about what happens to the farm. Or to you. After they left, I installed the new locks with shaking hands. Then I set up the doorbell camera, connecting it to my phone the way the store clerk had shown me. The little red light blinked, recording everything in front of my door. I called Martin Vega and told him about the threats, the debt collectors, everything. This changes things, he said. If they're desperate enough, they might try to force you out before we can get court protection. Mrs. Johnson, is there somewhere safe you can stay? Family? Friends? I'm not leaving my home. Then I'm recommending you contact the police. File a report about the threats, the sabotaged car, everything. I called the sheriff's department. A deputy named Carson took my statement over the phone, his tone skeptical, but professional. We can send someone out to take a formal report, he said. But Mrs. Johnson, family disputes are tricky. Unless there's been physical violence or direct threats. They sabotaged my car. They're planning to have me illegally committed. Isn't that enough? I'll make a note of your concerns. We'll increase patrols in your area. After I hung up, I understood that I was essentially alone in this. The legal system was too slow. The police were too cautious. My own son was states away and half convinced I was losing my mind. At 6 o'clock, my doorbell camera sent an alert to my phone. I opened the app and watched as a man in a dark suit approached my front door. Not Derek. Not anyone I recognized. He tried the handle, found it locked, then walked around the side of the house. I called 911. There's an intruder on my property. By the time the sheriff's deputy arrived 20 minutes later, the man was gone. But I had him on camera, trying my doors, peering in windows, testing the lock on the barn. Deputy Carson reviewed the footage on my phone. Do you know this man? No, but I think he's connected to the people my daughter and son-in-law owe money to. I'll file a report. We'll keep a closer eye on your place tonight. He looked at me with something like pity. Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to be honest with you. If these people are as dangerous as you say, you should seriously consider staying somewhere else for a few days. This is my home. Yes, ma'am. But it's not worth dying for. After he left, I sat in my darkened living room, watching the camera feed on my phone. The farm stretched out peaceful and still under the security light. 43 years I'd lived here, raised children here, buried my husband's ashes in the garden here. I'd be darned if I'd let Claire and her mess drive me out. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Your daughter can't protect you. Neither can your lawyer. Sign over the property or face consequences. You have until Saturday morning. I read it 3 times, my hands steady despite the fear coiling in my stomach. They'd miscalculated again. They thought an old woman would be frightened into compliance. They'd forgotten that I'd faced down blizzards and droughts, market crashes and crop failures, loneliness and grief. That I'd learned to be tough in a way that had nothing to do with physical strength and everything to do with refusal to break. I texted back, no. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. I woke at dawn, having slept surprisingly well despite everything. Perhaps it was the clarity that comes when you've made your stand, and there's nothing left to do but see it through. My doorbell camera showed no activity overnight, but I knew they were planning something. The evaluation was scheduled for 10 o'clock, and I'd made it clear I wouldn't attend. Claire wouldn't let that stand without a response. At 8, Martin Vega called. Mrs. Johnson, I've filed the emergency motion. The hearing is scheduled for Tuesday morning at 9, but I need to warn you, Dr. Phillips submitted his evaluation findings to the court late yesterday afternoon. How could he? He never met with me. He based it on observed behaviors, family testimony, and documented incidents of cognitive decline. It's highly irregular, and we'll challenge it, but for now, it's in the record. He paused. Lucille, his report recommends immediate placement in a secured facility. He's claiming you're a danger to yourself. Based on what? Based on Claire's documentation, the medication issues, the alleged confusion, the financial mismanagement. And there's something else. She submitted a statement from your son Michael supporting her concerns. My heart sank. Michael signed it. Yesterday afternoon, I'm sorry. So Claire had gotten to him after all. Probably told him some sob story about how I'd become hostile and paranoid. How she was just trying to help. Michael, who lived 3 states away and only saw me twice a year, had chosen to believe his sister over his mother. What do we do now? We fight. I'll be at the hearing Monday with our evidence. In the meantime, stay safe. And Mrs. Johnson, don't let them provoke you into any confrontation. Anything you say or do today could be used against you. After we hung up, I made coffee and reviewed my own documentation. Everything was organized, labeled, dated. I had photographs, bank statements, Derek's recording, inadmissible but persuasive. I had the doorbell footage of the intruder. I had Ruth as a witness to my competency. It should have been enough. But the system was designed to protect vulnerable elders, and Claire had masterfully positioned herself as the concerned daughter while painting me as the confused victim. At 9:30, a sleek Mercedes pulled up my driveway. Dr. Frank Phillips emerged, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. Claire and Derek followed in their own car, parking beside him. I watched through the window as they conferred on my front porch. Claire gestured animatedly. Phillips nodded, making notes on a tablet. Derek stood slightly apart, his body language radiating discomfort. The doorbell rang. I let it ring 3 times before answering through the intercom on my new camera system. Mrs. Johnson, this is Dr. Phillips. I'm here for your scheduled evaluation. I've declined that evaluation, Dr. Phillips. My attorney has informed you of this. Mrs. Johnson, I have a court order requiring you to submit to a wellness check. If you refuse, I'll have no choice but to recommend immediate involuntary commitment. You don't have a court order. You have an appointment I've canceled. Claire pushed forward. Mom, please. Just talk to him for an hour. That's all we're asking. Then we can sort everything else out. The time for sorting things out was before you decided to have me declared incompetent and steal my property. No one is stealing anything. Her voice rose. We're trying to help you, and you're being stubborn and irrational. Mrs. Johnson, Phillips interrupted smoothly, your daughter has expressed legitimate concerns about your welfare. The resistant behavior you're displaying is often symptomatic of cognitive decline. Patients frequently lack insight into their own condition. I lack insight into my condition. Doctor, you've never met me. You submitted an evaluation report yesterday recommending I be locked in a facility, and we've never spoken. That's not medicine. That's malpractice. I saw Phillips's expression tighten. I based my assessment on extensive documentation provided by your family. Documentation that's fabricated. My daughter has been manufacturing evidence of my supposed decline because she and her husband owe $250,000 to some very dangerous people. This isn't about my health. It's about financial desperation. Mom, that's a paranoid delusion. Is it? Derek? Tell Dr. Phillips about the men who threatened Lily. Tell him about your partner whose car ended up in the river. Derek's face went white. Claire shot him a warning look. Mrs. Johnson, Phillips said carefully. These elaborate conspiracy theories are another symptom we need to address. I really must insist. You can insist all you want. I'm not opening this door. They conferred in low voices. Then Claire pulled out her phone and made a call. 5 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Deputy Carson emerged, looking unhappy. Mrs. Johnson, I need you to open the door. On what grounds? Dr. Phillips has petitioned for an emergency welfare check. I'm obligated to verify you're safe. I understood the trap. If I refused the deputy, I'd be demonstrating the exact kind of resistant paranoid behavior that supported Claire's narrative. If I complied, I'd be admitting Phillips had authority over me. I'll open the door for you, Deputy Carson, not for them. I unlocked the door but kept the chain engaged, opening it 6 inches. Carson peered through the gap. Are you all right, ma'am? I'm fine. As you can see, I'm properly dressed, coherent, and managing my household. There's no emergency here. Mrs. Johnson, I need you to let Dr. Phillips conduct his evaluation. He's already conducted an evaluation without meeting me and submitted findings to the court. I have legal representation, and my attorney has advised me not to participate in any further contact with Dr. Phillips until we have a court-appointed independent evaluator. Carson shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, I don't want to have to force this. Then don't. I'm not a danger to myself or others. I'm simply exercising my legal right to refuse medical treatment I don't consent to. She's exhibiting clear signs of paranoia, Phillips interjected. The refusal to cooperate, the accusations against family members. These are textbook indicators of cognitive impairment, or indicators that I know exactly what's happening and I'm not cooperating with fraud. Mom, please. Claire pushed closer to the door. Just let us in. Let's talk about this like a family. We stopped being a family when you started plotting to have me committed. Something in Claire's face cracked then. The mask of concern fell away, revealing raw fury underneath. Fine. You want to do this the hard way? We'll do it the hard way. She turned to Phillips. File your recommendation. Emergency commitment. She's clearly a danger to herself. Based on what evidence? I demanded. Based on the evidence I've been collecting for months. Based on Michael's statement. Based on your own behavior right now. Barricading yourself in your house, making wild accusations, refusing medical care. Claire's voice was ice. By Monday morning, you'll be in Meadowbrook whether you like it or not. And once you're there, once you're under guardianship, every decision will be mine to make, including what happens to this farm. Claire. Derek tried to interrupt, but she whirled on him. Don't you dare get cold feet now. We're past the point of no return. Those people gave us until tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. If we don't have a solution by then, maybe that's what you deserve, I said quietly. Everyone froze. Maybe, I continued, the consequences of your choices should fall on you, not on me. Maybe your daughter should see what kind of people her parents really are. Maybe you need to face what you've done instead of trying to sacrifice me to save yourselves. Claire's laugh was bitter. Brave words from someone who's about to lose everything. You think your lawyer can stop this? You think the court will believe you over trained medical professionals and concerned family members? She leaned close to the door crack. You're 72 years old. You're alone. And by the time anyone realizes what really happened here, you'll be so medicated you won't remember your own name. It was the threat I'd been waiting for. The explicit admission of their intent. And my phone, propped on the hall table, had been recording the entire conversation through its video function. Deputy Carson, I said calmly, I want to file a formal complaint. Dr. Phillips has just admitted to filing a fraudulent medical evaluation. My daughter has just threatened me with unlawful confinement and forced medication, and I have evidence that this entire scheme is motivated by their debt to criminal enterprises. Carson looked between me and Claire, clearly out of his depth. Mrs. Johnson, these are serious accusations, with serious evidence to support them. I have recordings, documentation, witness statements, and now I have your presence here as a witness to these threats. Philip stepped back, his professional composure slipping. I've done nothing fraudulent. My evaluation was based on fabricated evidence from a woman whose desperation has made her dangerous. I finally opened the door fully, standing in my doorway, meeting each of their eyes. You made a mistake, Claire. You underestimated me. You thought because I'm old I'd be easy to manipulate. You forgot that I've been navigating difficult situations since before you were born. Mom, I'm not finished. My voice was steel. I know about the debt collectors. I know about Derek's disappeared partner. I know about the threats against Lily. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw the guardianship petition. Dr. Phillips is going to file an amended report with the court stating his initial evaluation was premature. And you're going to find another way to solve your financial problems. Or what? Claire's voice dripped venom. Or I go to the FBI. The silence that followed was absolute. You're bluffing, Derek said, but his voice shook. Am I? The FBI investigates interstate fraud, elder abuse, and organized crime. Your debt collectors who threaten children and make partners disappear? That's exactly their jurisdiction. And Dr. Phillips's fraudulent evaluation scheme? Mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, federal charges. I pulled out a business card, one Martin Vega had given me that morning. This is Special Agent Rebecca Torres. Martin contacted her yesterday as a precaution. She's very interested in cases involving exploitation of elderly victims. It was a calculated bluff built on a foundation of truth. Martin had contacted a colleague who worked with the FBI on elder abuse cases. Whether Torres was actually involved yet, I didn't know. But they didn't need to know that. Phillips's face had gone gray. I want no part of this. He looked at Claire. You said this would be straightforward. You didn't mention anything about criminal enterprises or federal investigations. She's lying. She's confused. Does she sound confused? Phillips snapped. He turned back to me. Mrs. Johnson, I apologize. I was given incomplete information. I'll be filing an amended report stating that a proper evaluation cannot be completed without direct examination and that the preliminary findings were premature. Dr. Phillips, you can't... Claire started, but he was already walking to his car. Deputy Carson cleared his throat. Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to file a report about this situation. Given the threats that have been made, I'm recommending increased patrols, and I'm going to suggest that Adult Protective Services conduct their own investigation. Thank you, Deputy. After he left, it was just me, Claire, and Derek standing in the cold morning air. My daughter looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Genuine hatred. You've ruined us, she said flatly. You know that, right? Those people don't accept excuses. They don't care about FBI investigations. By tomorrow morning, they'll come for what they're owed. Then, I suggest you call the FBI yourself. Witness protection exists for people in your situation. We can't, Derek started. You can. Or you can face the consequences of your choices. But those consequences don't include sacrificing me. I stepped back toward my door. You have 1 hour to clear your belongings out of the cottage. Then I want you off my property. This is still my home, Claire said desperately. I grew up here. You can't just... Watch me. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it as my legs finally began to shake. Through the window, I watched them stand there for several minutes, Claire arguing with Derek, both of them on their phones. Finally, they walked back to the cottage. I called Martin Vega immediately. It's done. I have the whole thing recorded. Claire made explicit threats. Phillips admitted his evaluation was based on their information, and Deputy Carson witnessed most of it. Send me the recording right now. I'll file an emergency motion to dismiss the guardianship petition and request a restraining order. He paused. Lucille, you did well. But this isn't over. If what you said about their debt is true, it is. Then they're going to get more desperate before this ends. Be careful. I spent the next hour uploading the recording, emailing it to Martin, making copies. Then I called Ruth and told her everything. Do you want me to come stay with you? She asked immediately. Not yet, but stay by your phone. At noon, a moving truck pulled up to the cottage. Claire and Derek loaded boxes with mechanical efficiency, Lily watching from the truck's cab with tears streaming down her face. I wanted to go to her, to comfort her, but I couldn't. Not now. Before they left, Claire walked to my door one last time. I watched her through the camera, saw her stand there for a long moment, her hand raised as if to knock. Then she dropped it and walked away. The truck pulled out of the driveway at 1:30. I watched it disappear down the road, taking my daughter and granddaughter with it. I'd won. I'd protected my home, my autonomy, my rights. So why did victory feel so much like grief? The farmhouse felt impossibly quiet after they left. I stood at the kitchen window watching the empty cottage, its windows dark. The small Christmas wreath Lily had hung on the door swaying in the December wind. The silence should have felt like peace. Instead, it felt like loss. I made tea I didn't drink. I reorganized papers that didn't need organizing. I did anything to avoid thinking about Lily's tear-stained face in that moving truck, about the way Claire had stood at my door with her hand raised, unable to knock, about the fact that I'd just banished my own daughter from the home where she'd grown up. At 4 o'clock, Ruth called. How are you holding up? I won, I said. So why does it feel like I lost? Because loving someone doesn't stop just because they betray you. That's the terrible part they don't tell you about standing your ground. Sometimes you have to stand alone. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with my mother's old Bible, the one I hadn't opened in years. Not for religion exactly, but for comfort. For the weight of something solid and enduring in my hands. The pages fell open to a passage marked with a ribbon. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will still bear fruit in old age. I thought about that. Bearing fruit in old age. Not withering, not becoming irrelevant, but continuing to grow and produce and matter. That's what this week had been about. Proving I still had value, still had agency, still had the right to my own life. Saturday morning arrived with fresh snow. I woke early and made cinnamon rolls from scratch, Thomas's favorite recipe. The house filled with sweetness and warmth, and for a few hours I could pretend it was just another December morning on the farm. At 9 o'clock, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Johnson? This is Special Agent Rebecca Torres with the FBI. My heart jumped. Agent Torres? I wasn't expecting. Your attorney Martin Vega contacted our office about your situation. I've reviewed the materials he sent over, including the recordings. Mrs. Johnson, I need to ask you some questions about Derek Sutton's business associates. We talked for 40 minutes. I told her everything I knew. The debt collectors, the threats against Lily, Derek's disappeared partner, the black SUV that had visited the cottage. She listened with the focused attention of someone building a case. Mrs. Johnson, what you're describing sounds like an organized lending operation that targets desperate people with predatory loans. We've been investigating similar activity in the Portland area. She paused. I need to tell you that if your daughter and son-in-law cooperate with our investigation, we may be able to offer them protection, but they'll need to come forward voluntarily. Will they face charges? That depends on what they've done and how much they're willing to help us. But Mrs. Johnson, I want to be clear. This investigation is about the people running the operation, not the victims they've trapped. After we hung up, I sat with that information. Claire and Derek were victims too, in their way. They'd made bad choices, yes, but they'd been preyed upon by people who specialized in exploiting desperation. The question was whether they'd be smart enough to accept help. I forwarded Torres's contact information to Derek's phone with a simple message. She can help. If you want to protect Lily, call her. Then I went outside to feed the chickens I kept in the small coop behind the barn. The routine of it, scattering grain, collecting eggs, checking water, grounded me. This was real. The farm was real. My life continued regardless of the chaos Claire had tried to create. I was gathering eggs when I heard a car in the driveway. I tensed, but it was only Martin Vega's sedan. He got out, bundled in a heavy coat, his breath fogging in the cold air. Mrs. Johnson, I have good news. Judge Patterson reviewed the recordings and dismissed the guardianship petition. Dr. Phillips has formally withdrawn his evaluation and is under investigation by the State Medical Board, and there's a restraining order in place. Claire and Derek can't come within 500 feet of you or your property. That's good, I said, though the words felt hollow. There's more. Harold Brennan called my office this morning. Apparently, Claire had approached him claiming you'd asked her to review your legal documents because you were concerned about your memory. He believed he was helping you by consulting with her. When he learned the truth, he was mortified. He's prepared to testify if needed, and he's offered to update your will at no charge. How generous of him, I said dryly. Martin smiled slightly. He knows he made a serious error in judgment. But Mrs. Johnson, the important thing is that your rights are protected now. The court sees this for what it was, an attempted exploitation of an elderly person, not a concerned family trying to help. After he left, I went back inside and called Michael. It was time to deal with that particular betrayal. He answered on the third ring. Mom, I've been trying to call you. Claire said, Michael, I need you to stop talking and listen. I told him everything. Not the edited version Claire had fed him, but the truth. The debt, the threats, the fabricated evidence, the conspiracy with Dr. Phillips. I told him about the recordings, the FBI investigation, the restraining order. When I finished, there was a long silence. I signed that affidavit, he said finally, his voice thick. I supported having you declared incompetent. Mom, I'm so sorry. I thought, Claire said you were calling her by Aunt Linda's name, that you'd gotten lost driving to the store. None of it was true. She needed you to believe I was declining so she could build her case. I should have called you directly. I should have come out there and seen for myself. He was crying now. I'm a terrible son. You're a son who believed his sister. That's not terrible. That's human. I sighed. But Michael, you need to understand something. When you're my age, the thing you fear most isn't death. It's losing control. Having people make decisions for you because they've decided you can't make them yourself. You trusted Claire instead of me, and that hurt more than anything she tried to do to my property. I know, and I'm sorry. What can I do? Come visit. Not right now. Give me some time. But come in January. Actually see me, talk to me, know me. Don't just trust what someone else tells you about me. I will, I promise. After we hung up, I felt something loosen in my chest. Michael had made a mistake, but he'd owned it. Unlike Claire, who doubled down on manipulation until the very end. Sunday was Christmas Eve. I attended the service at the small church in town, sitting in the pew where Thomas and I had sat for 30 years. Mrs. Peterson, the organist, gave me a warm hug. So did the Hendersons and the Crafts and half a dozen other neighbors. Word had gotten around, small towns being what they are, and the prevailing opinion seemed to be that Claire had always been a tricky one, and poor Lucille had been taken advantage of. I didn't correct them. Let them think what they wanted. I knew the truth was more complicated than victim and villain, but their kindness still warmed something in me that had gone cold. That evening, Ruth came over with dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. We ate at my kitchen table with candles burning and soft music playing, and for a little while, the farmhouse felt less empty. What will you do now? Ruth asked over apple pie. I don't know. Live my life, I suppose. Keep the farm running. Maybe plant a bigger garden in the spring. And Claire? I was quiet for a long moment. I hope she takes Agent Torres's offer. I hope she and Derek find a way through this that doesn't destroy them. But Ruth? I can't save her from herself. I spent this week learning that lesson. Hard lesson for a mother. The hardest. On Christmas morning, I woke alone. No Lily bouncing on my bed at dawn. No Claire making coffee in my kitchen. No Derek attempting to assemble some complicated toy while muttering under his breath. I cried then. Finally. Let myself feel the grief I'd been holding back. This was the price of standing my ground. Christmas alone. My family scattered. My daughter somewhere nursing her hatred of me. But I didn't regret it. I couldn't. At 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, expecting another threat. Instead, Grandma, it's Lily. I borrowed Mom's old phone. I miss you. Merry Christmas. Mom and Dad are talking to some FBI lady. Dad says maybe things will be okay. I hope so. I hope I can see you again. I love you. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I wrote back, I love you too, sweetheart. More than you know. Tell your dad I'm proud of him for being brave. Merry Christmas. In the afternoon, I drove to Ruth's for Christmas dinner with her family. Her grandchildren were noisy and chaotic and wonderful, filling the house with laughter and wrapping paper and the kind of joyful mess that comes from too many people in too small a space. They adopted me as an honorary grandmother for the day, and I helped Ruth's daughter-in-law in the kitchen and listened to Ruth's son explain his new business venture and felt part of something warm and alive. On the drive home, I thought about family, not the one you're born into, but the one you choose, the one that chooses you. Ruth had stood by me when my own daughter had betrayed me. Lily had found a way to reach out despite everything. Even Michael, flawed and foolish as he'd been, had apologized and promised to do better. Maybe that was enough. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed quietly. I changed my will officially, naming Michael as executor and establishing a trust that would protect the farm regardless of what happened to me. I updated my power of attorney documents, my healthcare directives, everything. Martin Vega's office handled it all with quiet efficiency. I installed better security cameras, changed my banking passwords, transferred the deed to a safety deposit box at a different bank, one Claire had never known about. I also called a contractor about renovating the cottage. New paint, new fixtures, maybe rent it out to a young family who needed a place to start. Turn Claire's space into something new and hopeful. On New Year's Eve, Agent Torres called again. "Mrs. Johnson, I wanted to update you. Derek and Claire Sutton have agreed to cooperate with our investigation. We're moving them into witness protection temporarily until we can dismantle this lending operation. Will they be safe? As safe as we can make them. And Mrs. Johnson, Derek asked me to tell you something. He said to say that he's sorry, and that you were right about facing consequences. He said he hopes someday Lily can know her grandmother again." "Someday," I repeated. "That's all I can ask for. There's one more thing. We recovered your will from Dr. Phillips's office. He'd been holding it at Claire's request. I'm having it couriered to your attorney's office." After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and watched the sun set over the farm. The fields stretched out white and pristine under fresh snow, the barn solid and weathered, the house warm and secure around me. 72 years old, I'd survived a husband's death, raised 3 children, run a farm through good years and bad, and now I'd survived my own daughter's betrayal and lived to tell about it. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will still bear fruit in old age. Maybe I wasn't done bearing fruit yet. January arrived with clear, cold days and brittle sunshine. I registered for a class at the community college, estate planning and elder law. If I could help even one other person recognize the warning signs of financial exploitation, maybe something good could come from this nightmare. Ruth and I started a weekly coffee date at the diner in town. Sometimes other women our age joined us, widows and survivors, women who'd outlived husbands and buried children and kept going anyway. We were tougher than anyone gave us credit for. Michael called every Sunday, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to. We talked about everything and nothing. The weather, the news, his kids, my chickens. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt trust. In February, a letter arrived from Claire. No return address, forwarded through Agent Torres's office. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. The letter was brief. "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. You were right about everything. The desperation, the bad choices, the consequences. Derek and I are safe now, and Lily is adjusting. The FBI says we might be relocated permanently after the trial. I won't make excuses for what I tried to do to you. I was drowning and I grabbed for the closest thing to save myself. And that thing was you. That's unforgivable. But I need you to know. When I stood at your door that last day with my hand raised, unable to knock, it wasn't because I hated you. It was because I finally understood what I'd become. And I couldn't face you. You taught me to be strong, to stand up for myself, to never let anyone make me small. And then I tried to make you small to save myself. The irony isn't lost on me. I hope someday, maybe years from now, you might let Lily know her grandmother. Not for my sake, for hers. She asks about you constantly. She says you're the strongest person she knows. She's right. See, I read the letter 3 times, then filed it away in my desk drawer. Not forgotten, but set aside. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond. Maybe not. For now, it was enough to know they were safe. Spring came early that year. By March, the farm was waking up. Crocuses pushing through snow, birds returning, the soil beginning to soften. I hired a young couple from town, the Harrisons, to rent the renovated cottage. They had a baby and another on the way, and they looked at the cottage like it was a palace. "We'll take good care of it," Mrs. Harrison promised. "I know you will." On a warm April afternoon, I was working in my garden when Michael's car pulled up the driveway. He'd driven from Colorado with his family, his wife Anna and their 2 teenage sons. They spilled out of the car with noise and luggage and teenage energy, and suddenly the farmhouse was full again. "Mom, where do you want us to put our bags?" "Can we see the chickens, Grandma?" "Mrs. Johnson, thank you so much for having us." I stood in my front yard, dirt under my fingernails, gray hair escaping from my ponytail, 73 years old and alive, and I smiled. "Welcome home," I said. That night, after dinner, Michael and I sat on the porch while his family watched a movie inside. The spring peepers were singing in the pond, and the stars were impossibly bright. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Michael said. "Anna and I have been talking. We're thinking about moving back to Oregon. The boys are almost done with high school, and I could work remotely. We'd like to be closer to you. You don't have to do that." "I know, but I want to. We want to. Not to take care of you. I know you don't need taking care of. But to be family. Real family. The way we should have been all along." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "I'd like that." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead. Then Michael said quietly, "Do you think you'll ever forgive Claire?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't the right word. Maybe it's more like understanding. She made terrible choices, and she hurt me badly. But she's also living with the consequences of those choices. That's its own kind of justice. She's still your daughter. She is. And part of me will always love her, even if I can't trust her. That's the complicated thing about family. Love doesn't just turn off because someone betrays you. I looked at him. But I also learned something important these past few months. Love doesn't mean sacrifice. It doesn't mean letting someone destroy you to save themselves. Sometimes love means standing your ground and saying no. That's hard wisdom. The best wisdom usually is. In May, I celebrated my 73rd birthday with a house full of people. Michael's family, Ruth and her family, the Harrisons from the cottage, neighbors from down the road, friends from church. We ate cake on the lawn, and the children ran through the fields, and someone set up badminton, and it was chaotic and lovely. As the sun set and people began packing up to leave, I stood on my porch looking out over the farm, the place that had almost been taken from me, the home I'd fought for. It wasn't just property. It was 43 years of memories. It was Thomas's laugh and Claire's first steps and Michael's graduation party. It was cold winters and hot summers and spring mud and autumn harvests. It was every decision I'd made, every challenge I'd overcome, every moment that had shaped me into who I was. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will still bear fruit in old age. I'd borne fruit. I'd stood my ground. I'd proven that 72, now 73, wasn't the end of relevance or power or choice. Age hadn't diminished me. It had refined me. Made me stronger, clearer, more certain of what mattered. And what mattered was this: living with dignity, standing with integrity, refusing to be small even when people tried to make you small. The farm was mine. My life was mine. My choices were mine. And I intended to keep it that way for as long as I had breath in my body. Ruth came up beside me on the porch. "Good party?" "Perfect party," I said. "You did it, you know. You won. We both won. We're still here, still standing, still relevant." I smiled at her. "Still bearing fruit." She laughed. "At our age, that's the best revenge." As the last guests drove away and the farmhouse settled into peaceful quiet, I went inside and made tea. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd planned my defense, where I'd faced down my fears, where I'd decided to fight. The house held me like an old friend. Outside, the spring darkness was soft with promise. New life stirring in the soil, seeds planted that would bloom in their time. I was 73 years old, and my story was far from over. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.